You're watching The Pulse on the JoyNews channel, coming to you live from our studios here in Accra. This is The Pulse. Coming up this afternoon, there is light at the end of the tunnel for Ghana, as the country is likely to receive the approval of board members of the International Monetary Fund. Already, the United States government, which holds the highest special drawing rights on the IMF board, says it will support Ghana's application for the bailout program.
A lot of work indeed has gone on behind the scenes for, I guess, 5 to 6 months when government formally announced its intention to engage the fund for a supported program to enable us to reach a staff-level agreement before year end, which looked like an impossible task.
We have details as Ghana reaches a staff-level agreement with the International Monetary Fund. But the minority in Parliament is warning that it may take a while for Ghana to secure a board-level approval due to the resistance to the domestic debt restructuring. Also, Accra High Court accepts terms of settlement reached between the state and William Atoisian, the founder of the defunct Capital Bank. We have details as Mr. Isian is convicted on his own plea.
So clear in our terms of settlement. If the first accused person decides to pay 19.99 million Ghana cedis by the 28th of February, the following day, we'll make sure that he's arrested and brought to court the following Monday. So we expect him to go by the terms of this agreement.
We'll get you the very latest on that. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities Digni Lu, Affordable Safe Sanitation. Don't forget that we're also on your DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144. It's on YouTube and all of our social media handles at JoyNews on TV. Stay with us as we bring you the details. I'm blessed to come. Welcome to The Pulse. And this afternoon, Ghana there's light at the end of the tunnel for Ghana, as the country is likely to receive the approval of board members of the International Monetary Fund. Already, the United States government, which holds the highest special drawing right on the IMF board, says it will support Ghana's application. A board-level approval remains the only hurdle for Ghana to assess the much-needed bailout of $3 billion. We'll hear from the U.S. Ambassador to Ghana, Virginia Palmer, shortly. But first, here's the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, announcing Ghana has reached a staff-level agreement for economic policies and reforms with the IMF.
So the key deliverables over the period include the preparation of the PCPEC program, medium-term macroeconomic framework, debt sustainability analysis and debt management strategy, structural reforms to address structural bottlenecks, improve competitiveness and promote efficiency and effectiveness, a memorandum of economic and financial policies, and an agreement on prior actions which are expected to be completed before the fund goes to the board. All of this indicate that Ghana stands ready to complete all the prior actions before this is successfully done, certainly within the first quarter of next year, looking at the end of January, if we can push it as we have done this one. So we are committed to the program as a whole, and we will do our part to make it happen. The SLA is only one aspect of the approval process. More is yet to be done to secure IMF management and board approval. And that is what we, all of us as Ghanaians, should work to ensure that we go through. Key fiscal measures, structural reforms, and the medium-term macro-fiscal framework in the 2023 budget are aligned with the IMF-supported program. It is therefore crucial that we receive support from all stakeholders, especially Parliament, to ensure that the 2023 budget, including all revenue measures, are passed and not return to last year's experience that we had. And the creditors also to ensure a successful debt operation. So even as we engage the domestic in the exchange, we'll be looking for our discussions with the bilateral partners and also with our bond investors. And we expect to get through that so that we'll conclude with the fund and the board. Truly, the eventual conclusion of the program will assist us in our efforts to restore stability, tackle inflation, and strengthen our currency. That is why the various ingredients of the program should be supported by all Ghanaians and all stakeholders. We can only get to the IMF board if we get sufficient commitment from our creditors in support of the debt operation. The 2023 budget is anchored on increasing domestic revenue mobilization effort by 1.2 percentage points of DGP. On the expenditure side, the 2023 budget proposes to reduce expenditures on commitment basis by about 2 percentage points of GDP from 2022 to 2023. Primary expenditures are expected to be reduced through a reduction in allocation on the use of goods and services and domestically financed capital expenditure on a commitment basis. These fiscal adjustments alone are not enough to address the country's economic challenges, hence the ongoing debt restructuring aimed at restoring debt sustainability in the medium term. The 2023 budget contains important social protection measures to support the most vulnerable, including measures that seek to gradually increase the number of beneficiary households as well as the value cash transfers under the LEAP. Other social protection programs which will be prioritized under the programs include the NHIS, the capitation grant, and the school feeding program. A key part, as Stefan mentioned, is also private sector engagement. As we look through austerity and ensure that we have social protection, the drive for growth should not be forgotten, and the PCPEC is key to that. We are optimistic that the 2023 budget adjustment strikes the right balance between determination and pragmatism. Already the economy is responding positively to the news of Government of Ghana and the IMF reaching an SLA, and we are eager to leverage this momentum at the very moment when the IMF Executive Board approves the program request. We're already seeing significant improvement in the exchange rate, with the Ghana cedi recovering against major currencies. We are confident as a resilient people that we shall rally to support this great enterprise to restore macroeconomic stability and promote robust and inclusive growth. The world is looking at us, and I know that we can do it.
And this agreement, as we understand, will be geared towards restoring macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability while protecting the vulnerable. The IMF team led by Stephanie Rudet expects a wide range of reforms from Ghana to address the structural weaknesses and enhance resilience to the shocks.
What is necessary for us to be able to present that program request to the board is assurances from Ghana's partners and Ghana's creditors that, one, the program is fully financed. In other words, the financial support that will be provided to the authorities during the program period is sufficient to finance the program. And two, that the program taken together, the fiscal consolidation path, the comprehensive debt restructuring that the authorities have launched will be sufficient to re-establish debt sustainability. And so as soon as we have assurances from creditors that this will be the case, when sufficient progress has been made on that front, we will be able to present the program to our board. And as to the follow-up question that you had on when the money would hit Ghana's accounts, that would happen very, very shortly after the program has been approved by the board.
Well, there are indications that we're making progress on that score, because we can hear from U.S. Ambassador to Ghana, Virginia Palmer, assuring that the United States will support Ghana's application at the board level.
The current economic crisis requires IMF assistance. I think that's why those international financial institutions were created. So we've urged the government of Ghana to negotiate with the IMF with urgency, and then as a board member, we'll support those programs. And further to that, we work with Ghanaian business and the Ghanaian government to strengthen the business environment so that Ghana lives up to its international reputation. It's important that problems with contract sanctity, problems with local hiring, problems with corruption don't undermine that, if I'm honest. And I think friends speak honestly to friends. For the $138 million, trying to keep me on point.
I'm interested in that as well.
I was very pleased to be able to announce those additional funding. A lot of that work will focus on agriculture and stimulating support for your agriculture sector, because that, again, is an engine for economic growth. And we do, again, techniques that improve farming for farmers, but we also work with financial institutions, for example, to try to leverage finance for small and medium enterprises in the agriculture and agro-processing sectors. So one of our programs, we think, will unleash something like $270 million of investment in that very important sector.
Well, parliamentarians have started reacting to the Finance Minister's joint news conference earlier today. NDC MP for Tamale Central, Ibrahim Mutala Mohammed, is delighted that government has secured the staff-level agreement. He, however, warns government may struggle to get the board approval. Here's why.
Well, I think that everybody will be happy. As a caucus, we insisted that this government needed to have gone to the IMF long before now, at a time when you had ministers, including the Minister for Finance and the Deputy Minister, who all publicly, without any principle, said they were not going to the IMF. I guess you are aware of the video circulating when Honorable John Kuma on the floor of Parliament said that as long as the MPP it remains in power, they will not go to the IMF. The Minister for Finance also, in having a program, said they were not going to the IMF. You have other communicators of the NPP who said they were not going to the IMF. So we have maintained and we have been consistent that they needed to go to the IMF, considering the mess created by their incompetence, recklessness, and sometimes outright thievery. And I say thievery because of some of the issues we're looking at. So if there has been a progress in the negotiation, then NDC certainly will be happy. We as a caucus will be happy. I'll be happy as a citizen of this country. If we never wanted us to get out of the woods, I don't think that we would have been asking the government to go to the IMF. So yes, as to whether I'm happy and the NDC is happy that there have been some progress, I'll say yes.
You were in government the last time the NDC went to the IMF. How soon do you think government can get a deal, a board agreement, so that government can get a $3 billion that its own much needs to turn the things around?
The difference is that the mess we have now wasn't the mess we had, for which reason we had to go to the IMF. The economy was far, far better than it is now. The dollar was not changing to the cedi up as much as 15 cedis. Thank God it is coming down now. We didn't have the kind of challenges we have as we're experiencing today. And the NDC had gone to the IMF earlier than this government has done. So certainly there was some quick response. We had finished with all these negotiations earlier than these people have. So if you ask me as to how soon, that cannot be determined. There are some countries that spend almost a year, even after getting the exactly. And the threat to how quick we get the IMF program is the decision taken by TUC yesterday. Because as part of the debt restructuring, the pension funds of pension contributors was factored into, and I believe that the IMF would have factored that into their calculation. And here is the case: TUC, per the press conference they had, and all their, allied agencies or organizations have said that they are not going to be participants in this government debt restructuring, particularly using the pension fund. You have other private people and entities who have raised those concerns as to whether it will affect the negotiation going forward. That I will not be able to tell. And for me, I think that would serve as an inselberg on the matter. It points to one fact, that there wasn't proper consultation. And I remember I commented on this on a sister TV station, that there wasn't proper consultation. You don't plan for people, you plan with people. The decisions that were taken, the debt restructuring and the entire program, was a program that was not supposed to just be a program of the NPP as a political party or a personal property of the Minister for Finance. It was a program that had something to do with external bodies, such as the TUC and other civil servants and other private entities. So how on earth could you even do such a thing without consulting them? Because if there was proper consultation, their views and positions would have been factored into the entire, program that the minister announced. Unfortunately, this was not done.
Correspondent Kweku Asante is joining us for more on this. And Kweku, what more can you say about the reactions going on in the House?
So just gone by, the minority leader himself on the floor, he said that a start level agreement does not mean anything until and unless government is able to get some form of agreement with the board itself to look into some of those key matters. And so he says that despite the optimism, despite the excitement of government, this board level agreement may not mean much if government does not get the debt restructuring on point to be able to secure the board agreement so that they can get the money. But the response is on two sides. We've also heard from the minority that who says that this debt restructuring that government is undertaking, government must lay before Parliament some of these documents. They said that on the floor. We had a response from the NPP side. The vice chairman of the finance committee, Patrick Boama, saying that all those documents, if they have to come to Parliament, will come in terms of this domestic debt restructuring. But from the other NPP side, we know that NPP MPs said they wanted Ken Ofori-Atta out. The president met them and said, right after the IMF negotiations are concluded, and also right after the budget is presented, I will start Ken Ofori-Atta for you. Some of the NPP MPs are delighted that at least this is getting close to that. We are expecting that by 21st, the appropriation would have been passed. That means the budget would have been out of the way. And if government is able to get a board level agreement, IMF talks would have also been concluded. And then NPP MPs say they expect the president to crack the whip on Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta.
So beyond that, what's been happening in the House?
So MPs have been considering the various estimates of the various ministries, departments, and agencies. And so indeed, both yesterday and today, Parliament sat really late so that MPs could go about their various committee works and conclude those estimates. The minority leader has been warning that if the substantive ministers do not appear in Parliament themselves, their budget will not be approved. The majority chief whip has been giving some assurances that they will try and get the ministers to come into the House. And so the House has just adjourned. MPs are going back into committee to consider the estimates of the various agencies. I've also been speaking to Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed, who's been telling me about the National Cathedral, 80 million Ghana cedis that has been allocated to that construction. They say that their committee has put that approval on hold until government is able to provide some documentations to that effect.
Well, it's time now for us to expand this conversation. Let's bring in some more reactions to this. Kweku Asante, I'm grateful. Let's speak to economist Godfred Bokquin at the University of Ghana Business School. Thank you, sir, for your time here on the polls. You've heard that announcement a couple of hours ago. The finance minister is hopeful that that's the way or the path to economic recovery. 17 times we've been there. There are fears that this will not be the end. What's your take on this? Professor Bokquin, if you can hear me, I'm just asking what your take is, knowing that we've been to the IMF 17 times already.
The line is very faint. Can you speak up a bit?
Yes, Professor Bokquin, if you can hear me, I'm just asking about the number of times we've been to the IMF, 17 times, and the hope is that we will not return, in the words of the finance minister.
Well, we have heard that time and again. We are unable to walk our talk, right? So I think we should be less hopeful on that, but rather look at what measures we will be putting in place as a country as part of the program, what level of reforms, so that we'll be able to situate the gains that we'll get from the IMF in order to make it durable or lasting. I think that is what we should be focusing on, rather than saying that this will be our last time. We have heard this one too many. So it doesn't carry any economic news, actually. We have said that, and it's very obvious, that the level of crisis that we are in requires an intervention beyond an IMF-supported program, because that is going to be an economic program. Urgently, Ghana needs to initiate governance reform and tackle corruption aggressively. If you look at the statement from the IMF, it is not for the IMF to tell government to reduce the size of government. It's not for the IMF to tell which minister to reshuffle. That is certainly not what the IMF is in for. So, but we know that our governance is too expensive. We know that our procurement mechanism, we know that our public investment management process is fraud, it is full of corruption, right? We know that these are the things that systematically weaken this country and makes us vulnerable to external shocks. So if we don't come together across the political divide, across different occupational groups and multiple stakeholders in this economy, if we don't come together and begin to ask hard questions and initiate painful governance reforms, painful meaning that those who are benefiting from the canker will not give up easily, and it will require some kind of trade-off, require clear leadership, decisive leadership, then saying that we'll not go to the IMF again is not something anybody will bet on.
Now we know that what's left is the board level approval. At least we are getting some confirmation from the US government that they will support Ghana's request. How significant will that intervention be?
I think that the US supporting Ghana at the board level, for me, is not news. The issue is how do we do what the prior actions, debt restructuring, and the other things that we have to do in order for the staff level agreement to move to the board level. I think that is what that one rests on us. It doesn't rest on the board. By the time the document gets to the IMF executive board, it will be very difficult for any member country to actually oppose it at that level, because a lot of things would have been done, clarity would have been brought to bear, and therefore by the time it gets to the board, it's almost a given that approval will be. Otherwise, they won't actually send the document to the board. So let's not look at it that the US will support us at that level. Member countries will support us once we get to the board. What is important now is how do we move this staff level agreement to the board? And as you will see, there are certain prior actions that have to be met. Our debt restructuring that we have to do. So far, you've seen that with the domestic debt announcement, there's a strong pushback, right? So government will have to take another look at the terms of the debt exchange. They have to look at it again. More importantly, there should be broader consultation, okay, and greater stakeholder input. Now, if government adopt a similar approach with external debt restructuring, then there will be many more complications, and that is where the delay will come from. Now, and if you look at it also, there's some kind of imbalance between the fiscal adjustment, especially on the part of expenditure, and government unwillingness to cut the size of government to demonstrate leadership in order to get buy-in of stakeholders in the debt operation. So that is where I think we should focus our attention on now. Also, once we are able to do all of this and the document gets to the IMF executive board, I think securing approval will not be that complicated.
In government's or Ghana's trajectory at the International Monetary Fund, what's the outlook? What do you predict might happen this time around?
I think that we've seen in the last couple of days how the market is rallying. The good news is that once we reach a staff level agreement, that's a major breakthrough. And it's also a confirmation that the country is serious about addressing the mess it has created. Staff level agreement represents a broad understanding between the IMF and the authorities in the case of Ghana, essentially Ministry of Finance, in terms of the fiscal side, and then Bank of Ghana in terms of the monetary side, right? So that broad understanding outlining fiscal monetary framework adjustment, structural reform, targets, because the program is going to have targets and inbuilt monitoring mechanisms. So this level of agreement is very fundamental. And I think that is what it sends positive signal to the market also. What Ghana should be looking at then is not to look at this as the economic salvation, but rather as a stepping stone to doing other important reforms that we need to pursue alongside the IMF-supported program. Other than that, we remember we exited an IMF program just 2019, and this is our 17th time, right? And it's taking us shorter period now to go to the IMF than it happened a couple of decades ago.
Will we ever go back again?
I think this will not be our last time. The reason I'm saying that this will not be our last time is that even in the midst of this crisis, government hasn't demonstrated the required leadership to say that on our own we'll be able to come out of a crisis if it shows up. We are not demonstrating lean government. We are not prepared to tackle the fundamental canker in our governance, which opens us up to external shocks. So until, we can change the narrative if we see the signs, but the signs are not there to indicate that this will be the last time Ghana will go to the IMF. And as we have said, if you look at the broad program agreement objectives and outline, you see that these are essentially short-term. Look, take this. The staff level agreement that has been announced, of course, we were expecting front-loaded fiscal adjustment. That's what they've told us. That is also important because of the 2024 election. We do know that in almost all the major elections that we've had IMF program, the IMF program actually failed to deal with the political business cycle. The fiscal slippages that comes along with almost all the competitive elections. So you can talk about 2016. 2016, we were under an IMF program, which was approved on April 3rd, 2015. In the first year of the program implementation, we made a lot of progress. But what happened was that the 2016 election, we actually used the election to reverse practically all the gains that were made in the first year of implementation of the 16th IMF program. What that tells you is that even with the watch of the IMF, they could not prevent us from messing up the fundamentals of the economy in order to win over electorate in 2016. You can also see that in other years when we had elections and then even though we had an IMF program. In fact, in 2016, the last review in 2016 didn't happen because the economy was practically put on autopilot just for elections, and therefore nobody cared about the numbers. Nobody cared about the IMF program. And that is why when we were done with the elections, we had actually destroyed the fundamentals of the economy, and an extension to the 16th IMF program was a logical outcome in order for the program to deliver on its objectives. So for this one too, we have to make sure that we put in the right mechanisms so that the 17th IMF program does not suffer a similar fate in 2024.
Grateful. Professor Godfred Bokpin with the University of Ghana Business School. Now, the Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, CETAG, has resolved to remain on strike as it waits on government to engage them over their demands for better conditions of service. Joining me via Zoom now is Sophia Andor, CETAG National Gender Coordinator, and Daniel Adom Fien, Research Fellow of the Teacher Education Journal. Thank you, gentlemen and lady, for your time. Let me start off with you from CETAG, because government says you may lose your December salary if your strike continues. Are you not worried about this directive? You'd have to unmute so we can get the point you're making. If you're with us, well, I was just asking if you're not worried about the directives from the Education Ministry. They are warning that you may lose your December salary. And if you could just kindly unmute for us so you make that point.
Yeah. No, we are not worried at all. We are not worried at all that we may lose December salary. Actually, we don't even think that it has to come to that, because it's National Labour Commission that will have to indicate whether our strike is legal or illegal. And our strike has not been declared illegal by the National Labour Commission. So we don't really understand where this is coming from.
And now,
until the
let's
National
unpack,
Labour Commission
let's unpack
declares
your...
our strike as illegal, we don't think that we have to lose our December salary.
Right, but let's try and understand your concerns, because what we see with your counterparts, CETAG, is that they're at least trying as much as possible to deal
Hello?
if you can hear me, I was just talking about what's happening with your counterparts.
Could you come again?
If you're with me, I'm asking about your counterparts, CETAG. And of course UTAG, they have all called off their... Well, it appears that we're having some challenge, but I'll try one more time. I'm saying that the University Teachers Association of Ghana, they have, of course, called off that strike. Why are you not doing same?
Because they have gotten what they asked for. That's why they've called off their strike. We haven't taken an entrenched position. All that we are saying is that give us an MOU telling us the roadmap to our grievances, which is, of course, very legitimate. So if they are prepared to sit down with us, just like they sat down with UTAG, UTAG never called off the strike. They were still on strike, and they had the opportunity to sit down and trash issues out with government. Why is it that we are not being allowed to do so? And we are being asked to go back to the classroom before you can give us a hearing? Why are you threatening us with no validation, no salary, when you have not given us the opportunity to sit down? Let's sit down and let us talk so that it will be a win-win situation for all of us. But if you say that, if you begin to issue out threats saying that you are not going to give us our December salary, then I think that is very unfortunate. And that does not scare us in any way. We will only go back to the classroom when we have had the opportunities met, or there's a written MOU stating what is going to be done for us. Then we know that we are going back to the classroom, and then we have something. And to go back to the classroom, coupled with the fact that National Labour Commission has not indicated that our strike is illegal, then we don't think.
Your thoughts as well. So CETAG is saying, well, they don't intend to call off the strike just as UTAG has done. This will further affect academic activities on the various colleges of education campuses. Daniel, if you can hear me, I'm just asking about how this will practically affect academic activities there.
Yeah, students and relevant stakeholders could do the needful and use the opportunity, the period of the absence of the students, to call us and sit down and talk issues out. What government is going to give us, and then we will go back to the classroom. But until then, we are still on strike.
I was just asking Daniel about his thoughts on how this will affect the academic activities, because earlier some similar concerns were raised. So Daniel, help us understand the actual concerns and what's happening now. How do you feel government should be approaching this?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. First of all, good afternoon to all the listeners. Basically, this thing is really affecting students, looking at the current economic hardship in the system. As we speak, for the past 4 weeks, students have been on campus. They were supposed to write their mid-semester quizzes last 4 weeks. But due to the strike, students are still on campus and they've not written their mid-semester. I learned they started their mid-semester somewhere this week. That was yesterday, that they've started writing their mid-semester quizzes, which when they are done, they will write their end of semester examination. It has really had a very big toll, not only on the students, but the colleges of education as well, or the 46 colleges of education. Looking currently at the fact where the colleges of education are being hit with some major financial assistance, sometimes getting food for the students to eat is a problem. So it is really having a big toll on the colleges of education. But all we are saying as TEG is that there should be tempers that should come down. I think that the government needs to sit the CETAG members down together with the National Labour Commission. They need to sit down and come into an agreement. As CETAG was saying, there should be a roadmap to this whole thing. But our interest is on the fact that students are still on campus and they are suffering. They need to write their examinations and go home, and then for the next semester to continue.
What would it take to bring you into the classrooms?
We want to sit down with government. And then actually we are finished with negotiation. So we are not negotiating for anything. There are few issues that have to be trashed out. And one of them is the effective date for the implementation of the conditions of service. Fair Wages and Salary Commission decided to take that effective 2023. And we are saying that no, that is not acceptable to us. If you want to go to 2023, you cannot take up that decision alone. At least you could come to us for us to sit down and then we talk about it and then we come to an agreement. But if you take an entrenched position, that's something that was supposed to have taken effect from 2022, the year has not even ended and you want to take it upfront to 2023, then it is actually not acceptable. We understand that the government may not have money, but let us sit down. Let us sign an MOU. 2022. I can't pay you in 2022. The year is almost ended. Let's go back to, let's see what can be done in 2023. We will come back to the classroom. It's simple as that. Meet us. Tell us what you have for us and give us a definite roadmap so that we know when we are collecting what and we know what is given to us. That has not been done. And so we say that, do that for us. And let us see what we are asking for. So when next we'll come back to the classroom.
When next are you engaging government or the stakeholders on this? So if I'm asking when next next round of negotiations or engagements will continue. It appears we've lost Sophia there, but
please come again.
Yeah, I was just asking when next are we to expect next phase or rounds of negotiations?
We have finished with negotiation. We are not negotiating with anybody. The only thing is the signing of the MOU. That is what is left. When they brought the MOU for us to sign, we realized that there are certain things that have been changed. And that's why we are asking and we are saying that those things that have been changed, we were not consulted. So until we are consulted for us to come to an agreement and those things reverted, then you will be able to come back to the classroom. But until then, so we are willing to sit down with the government or with relevant stakeholders and talk about the pending issues.
All right, then.
When the pending issues are discussed and then we reach an agreement and an MOU is signed so that we know specifically what we are getting and when we are getting it, we are good to go. So until the narrative changes, we are saying that we are staying out of the classrooms until the narrative changes, and we are not scared about not being validated for December.
All right then, thank you. Sophia and Daniel, I'm grateful for your time. Now, an Accra High Court has accepted the terms of settlement reached between the state and William Atoisian, founder of defunct Capital Bank. This comes on the back of an earlier reaction by the court on the proposed settlement. Mr. Essien has been charged with the offence of conspiracy to steal, stealing and money laundering. In court today, state prosecutors and lawyers for Atoisian advanced arguments to convince the court that the terms of the settlement reached between the two parties were the best deal for the state? Well, my colleague Richard Kojunyako has been monitoring all of that in court, joins me in studio now. And Richard, you'd want to walk us through what transpired today.
Well, so you remember that when the court last sat, it rejected the terms of settlement between the states and then the lawyers for Mr. Atuasian. The judge, Eric Chebal, asked them to return today and convince him on why he should accept the agreement. So when they came, it was the Deputy AG who represented the prosecution and indicated that indeed Section 35 of the Court Act, satisfied the entire case that they were sitting on. And so, one, that the money that has been lost or that has occasioned the economic loss belongs to the state. Two, when the banks were collapsed, it was government that injected some amount of money, and that also amounts to the state. And thirdly, in case of the failure on the part of Mr. Atuasian to pay the money, it is still government that has the obligation to pay that amount of money. So on that particular threshold, he feels that there is Section 35 applied. Now, when he got to the part of the lawyers for Mr. Atuasian, he indicated that times are indeed hard and Ghana is in some kind of economic turmoil. And so if the state or the judge would accept the terms and conditions, it will help so that they can recover some amount of money. Indeed, Mr. Atuasian has already paid 30 million Ghana cedis out of the total of 90 million Ghana cedis. And so the others are supposed to be spread in 3 installments. So 3 of them would be paid until the 15th of December next year, where the last tranche would be paid. And so that is how they managed to convince the judge to, agree to the terms of settlement.
Do we know if Mr. Atuasian was convinced or otherwise?
Well, so he was convicted. Mr. Atuasian was convicted on his own plea. So the counts were recited to him one after the other. You know, they've been charged on 3 counts. 1, conspiracy to steal, 2, to steal, stealing, and then money laundering. And so on all the 16 counts, he pleaded guilty. Hitherto, he had not pleaded guilty. And so it took 3 years. And so when the terms and settlements, came up, then he pleaded guilty. So now he has pleaded guilty. Now judgment on Mr. Atuasian has been suspended. So he's not been rejected outright. It's been suspended. Failure to go by the terms of settlement, then the state will arrest him and the judgment.
So what this means is that he needs to pay in all the 90 million Ghana cedis, which is at stake now.
Yes, so indeed the AG explains that even if he fails on the first payment of the second tranche of it, that is the 20 million, even if he pays like 19.99 million Ghana cedis, then the state will quickly go in for him, because now he would have gone against the contract that has been signed by them.
So what are the next steps now?
So now for Mr. Atuasian, it is left for him to abide by the terms of settlement and pay, so that he would not, be gone after by the state. Now, you know, there were 3 people that were standing trial. It was left with Teteneti and then Reverend Fitzgerald Odonko. Now, when it happened like that, the judge adjourned proceedings and then had to take out portions of the judgment that related to Mr. Atuasian. And so the judgment that was read only related to Teteneti and the Reverend Fitzgerald Odonko, and then the 2 of them were acquitted and discharged. And so, they also would not have any answers to give.
Does this talk about 192 million Ghana cedis?
Yeah. So the 192 million cedis, in fact, there were actual questions about it. Why is it that we talk about economic loss of 192.5 million Ghana cedis, and then all of a sudden we are talking about Atuasian paying back 90 million Ghana cedis? And then they said that, well, when the matter came up and upon investigation, 65 million Ghana cedis were found to have been used to purchase some shares. And so they had to retrieve that one, and then the money were also brought back. And then 35 million Ghana cedis was also used in buying shares at Capital Bank.
Right.
And so the state had to also get that money back. And so that makes up 100 million. And then during the investigations, the IOCO also retrieved 1.3 million. So technically, it was left with 90 million for Mr. Atuaisen to pay. Now, lawyers for Mr. Atuaisen indicated that when they talk about interest, Mr. Atuaisen paying interest, because the matter started in 2015. It was 2015 that they detected that monies have been stolen. They said that there was a double count by the AG. And so the double count amounted to 30-something million. And so in technical terms, Mr. Atuaisen is paying an interest of 30 million. Otherwise, Mr. Atuaisen would have been left with 60 million.
Or just to pay. Have we heard from Ghanaian state officials on what the next steps will be?
Well, so after court proceedings, we got in touch with the Deputy Attorney General who represented the state, and he says that it is victory for the state because they have done well by recovering. They say they would get virtually, essentially nothing should they, put someone in custody, and they would fail to recover some of the money. So we have been speaking with Deputy Attorney General Alfred Chiayabwa.
In terms of prosecuting financial crimes, you have two main approaches. You prosecute and as much as possible also recover. So if in the course of prosecuting the matter, an accused person comes out with an offer that's reasonable to the state, we'll consider it and look at the way forward. Because an accused person may be imprisoned, the money that if prosecuted on may still be with him, he comes back and enjoys the booty. Because at the time that you were investigating, you couldn't have any inclination as to where those monies had been hidden. So if possibly, in the other cases, they make offers and we deem them to be reasonable to the state, we may consider it. But if there are offers that are unreasonable, we will not accept them. We'll go ahead and do our work. The last time that we came, there was no opportunity for the parties to explain how they came by the 90 million Ghana cedis. In fact, the first accused person, Atuaisen, has always insisted that he has an amount not more than 57.5 million Ghana that he thinks he has stolen. 57.5. And we also were of the view that even if he accepts the 57.5, the money has been with him for some time. So we insisted on getting some reparation for the state. So out of the 90 million, over 32.5 forms part, or is part of the reparation. So 57.5 as the admitted sum, the state is being compensated by way of reparation in the sum of 32.5 million Ghana cedis.
So this is good business.
To the state, it's reasonable.
Rob, we're happy with this settlement plan, but I also want to believe there may be a plan in the event of a default.
Certainly, it's so clear in our terms of settlement. If the first accused person decides to pay 19.99 million Ghana cedis by the 28th of February, the following day, we'll make sure that he's arrested and brought to court the following Monday. So we expect him to go by the terms of this agreement. We will not, under any circumstance, even extend it by a day. We are monitoring, we keep our diaries, check the accounts of the Bank of Ghana to see whether those monies have been paid. If he pays them, so be it. If he doesn't, then the courts will definitely deal with him. Yes, when it comes to prosecution, we choose our witnesses. We are not compelled by people to choose our witnesses. The court has made some findings. We will study the findings and see how we can also take a step on it if need be. But in terms of we choosing our witnesses, nobody chooses our witness for us. There are even instances where an accused person may even used as an accomplice witness. It's possible that two people may commit a crime, we may choose to charge one and use the other against the other accused person. And in this world of plea bargain, you are going to see most of these things where we may even want to bargain with an accused person, get a conviction, then use him against other accused persons allowed under our laws. So we said the judgment.
The argument today was upheld that the monies involved are state monies. But what do you say to depositors and shareholders who may have been following this case?
The depositors and the shareholders, the government has taken it as a policy to pay the depositors of the defunct banks. And this one is also a wake-up call to the other financial institutions that the state will not rest until just brought to the depositors and the people of Ghana. Because the state will not spend over 25 billion and allow people to use their money with their families and then they will enjoy out of it. We are ready and willing to pursue every cedi that the state has used in paying back the depositors.
On now to some of the issues, the Ghana National Poultry Farmers Association is asking the government to institute a special contingency fund for early payment of compensations to farmers affected by disease outbreaks. Currently, over 70% of poultry farmers in the country are out of business, stemming mainly from the 2021 avian disease outbreak, as well as the present ballooning feed costs. President of the association, Victor Pong-Ejay, says many poultry farmers are selling their poultry with no expectation of restocking to avoid losses. There's more in the following report.
Avian influenza or bird flu is an outbreak that no poultry farmer wants to hear.
In 2021, 159 farms in 10 out of the 16 regions of Ghana were infested with the avian influenza A subtype. The disease outbreak affected the poultry industry as many of the farmers were forced to eject infested animals from their farms. The situation, coupled with the current expensive cost of poultry feed, has pushed at least 70% of poultry farmers in the country out of business due to financial challenges to stay afloat. Speaking at the 48th Annual General Meeting of the Ghana Veterinary Medical Association, National President of the Ghana Poultry Farmers Association, Victor Pong-Ejay, revealed most farmers are refusing to restock their farms.
Most of the farmers are not even breaking even. So, as you continue to pile up debts, you just sell the best and reluctantly not restock the farm. So as we speak now, about 70 to 80% of the poultry farmers are not in operation. They are not working. And I see this as very serious, very distressful, scary, pity, because it's going to create more of unemployment.
A total of 17 million Ghana cedis was released by the government to compensate the affected farmers. However, the association wants the government to institute a contingency fund to avoid delays in compensation payments in future emergencies.
It takes too long for the farmers to get their compensation. In 2022, those who had this in January, up to now, the compensation have not been paid. I understand now that the government is making arrangements to pay them the compensation. We are saying that at least they should be paid at an earlier stage. I was also suggesting that the government can create a contingency fund for emergencies like the bird flu, so that farmers within 3 months can even get their money and start their work.
Currently, veterinary legislations in the livestock and poultry industries are outmoded, presenting difficulties in flushing out bad nuts from the industry. A legal framework to resolve the pending challenges is underway. However, President of the Ghana Veterinary Medical Association, Dr. Cyril Christ, wants processes fast-tracked for implementation of the laws.
If you look at laws like diseases of animal health, these laws were enacted somewhere in the 60s, but the dynamics have changed. So we need to bring in laws that embrace the whole sector and then the modern trends in, livestock management. Currently, we've worked on the various drafts which are at the ministry level. So we're urging the Honorable Minister to use his good officers to push these laws so that they can get cabinet approval, and from there it can go to Parliament and be enacted as laws to regulate the industry.
The 48th AGM of the Ghana Veterinary Medical Association was held under the theme Ghana's Poultry Industry at the Crossroads, the Way Forward. For JoyNews, Emmanuel Bright Kweku reporting.
Well, let's get more on this. President of the Ghana National Association of Poultry Farmers, Victor Oponije, is joining us via Zoom. Thank you, sir, for your time. How many of your members have received this compensation from government that you're talking about? Mr. Ije, you have to unmute so we can hear the point you're making clearly.
Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, sir. Thank you for your time. I was just asking about the compensation and as if we indeed have some of your members already benefiting from that.
Yes, I think the government has made it clear to pay compensation to affected bird flu farmers. And they made payment up to December 2021. But in the year 2022, farmers have not yet been paid. But understand they are making arrangements to pay them. But, you know, from that time to now, it has been very difficult for the farmers because, for example, those who lost their birds in January and who have not been paid, you know, the consequence is that he's now idle from that time till now. There's nothing that he's doing. That's why we were making an appeal that the government should fast track in the payment of the compensation to the farmers.
And you say that this is likely to cripple the entire sector because most of your members are not willing to restock. How bad is the situation?
The situation is so bad, very deplorable, that as I rightly said, farmers who sell their bears are not ready to restock because farmers are making losses to the effect that you cannot feed your bears even when you bring them on board. As we speak now, maize has been very expensive and you cannot even get access to maize to feed the bears. Most of the farmers are struggling to get the inputs to feed the bears, which is very serious. And, you know, poultry is all about the feed. And when we talk of the feed, we are talking of the maize, the soya beans, the wheat bran, and others. But there has been scarcity of these inputs for farmers to operate. And it is not the best. Farmers are really suffering.
So in terms of the way forward, what do you intend to do? Are you likely to do more engagements or there are some practical measures you're taking from your side as the association to deal with this?
Well, I think we speak a lot on these issues. We've had a lot of information to the ministry, to the government, to Parliamentary Select Committee, and all those who matter. We've given them enough proposals and enough business plans and other things, and we are expecting them to come out with a solution to revamp the poultry industry. Because as we speak now, if we don't take care, very soon we will not get a single poultry farmer in the country, looking at the situation now.
Your appeal, sir?
My appeal is for the government to intervene. We need an intervention, especially having a stakeholder meeting to discuss the issue once more, because we need to come out with strategies as to how we can revitalize the industry.
And I'm grateful. Victor Oponije is president of the Ghana Association of Poultry Farmers. You're still watching The Pulse? We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. The Ashanti Flour Users Association has petitioned the Ministry of Trade and Industry over hikes in the prices of flour. A bag of flour, which cost over 280 cedis in the first quarter of this year, currently sells at 660 Ghana cedis. The skyrocketed price, they say, is pushing most flour users, especially bakeries and other related businesses, out of the market. There's more in the following report.
Flour users suspect foul play by local flour importers. Importers in both Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire import the flour from the same countries. But the users in Ghana claim a bag of flour sells at less than 300 Ghana cedis in Côte d'Ivoire. The flour users want this addressed. Every 2 weeks, the price of flour goes up. The imported flour from Ivory Coast is cheaper compared to ours.
Cote d'Ivoire no 300 cedis per bag. But yeah, 650.
Some can no longer pay workers and others are wallowing in debt.
Before I bake one bag, just our employee nipetu. They say me workers over 45.
We cannot even pay our workers. The number of bags of bread we produce has reduced.
Yet me Bobby 60 bars, 70 bars. Say what 20, 25. The workers know how we use number now they 1 more year juman. So workers now no 1 more year juman say. Nan say kra na ba say see yi bi modi. E ma bi kofi, e ma na ka bi wo so still. Ya want to say
Margarine, nutmeg, and chine. Just a yamani nyina. Says here 19 ton 3.2. A situation crowd any American nutmeg 10 million bag.
The price of sugar, nutmeg, salt, and margarine are shooting up.
Nutmeg near ton 30 million. Says here 80 million. Oh, and here Sabino, no more. Is here rubber editor, ya shop on union, Nina, I too. Nina, so bet your face some back, yeah.
Prices of other baking ingredients such as margarine, salt, milk, sugar, eggs have equally shot up. Chief Executive Officer of BB Superfine Bakery, Theresa Bwachi-Bwedu, says this has affected the quality of bread on the market.
So most of the bread that we are taking in town, because the bakers wouldn't want to go out of business. So he has to devise a means to remain in the industry. And because of that, there are certain things that they will also want to reduce it, especially something like eggs. The price of eggs has gone up. So if you are using about, say, 20 eggs for a bag, you can't use it. You have to reduce it to about, say, 12. So definitely it will affect the quality. And that isn't probably what we were taught. We were given the recipe, we have the books and so on.
She used to bake 350 bags of bread a day. This has reduced to 170 bags and sometimes less with the same number of employees. She plans to lay off at least 40 of her workers this month.
So I wanted to lay some of them off starting from October, but they pleaded with me. And then I extended it to November ending. Then the November 2, they came pleading. So they themselves know that, well, with the current trend, they all can't be here. So they beg that if they will even go, then that should be after December.
Women in the retail bakery business are also feeling the heat of low sales due to the continuous increase in the price of bread. Retailer Sandra Dankwa says she used to sell 200 loaves of bread daily, but currently sells below 100 Ghana cedis due to the price increment.
And it's a first, no, a 5 cedis, but the Siano.
Sales is not as fast as before. Workers in the baking industry are appealing to the government to listen to the plight of the bakers to keep them in business. Mona Lisa Frimpon reporting.
And a member of that group, there is Bwachi-Bwedu, who's also the chief executive of the BB Superfine Bakery, joins us now on phone. Thank you for your time. What are the details of this petition that you're putting out there? We can't hear you properly. If you could just, of course, make that point again. I was just asking about the details of the petition. If you can hear me, I'm just asking about the details of the petition. Apologies for that. We'll try and rework the line. But for now, some residents of Kumasi say they may not meet their Christmas plans due to the current economic hardship. They are unable to undertake their usual pre-festive activities as compared to the previous year. Some are, however, planning to make adjustments to make merry despite of the economic hardship. Clinton Yeboah has more in this report.
In the last few years, the economy of the country has witnessed drastic changes. Less than 2 weeks to the celebration of Christmas, how are Ghanaians preparing for this celebration despite the economic changes?
Christmas festivities are special in the Ghanaian setting, considering that 71.3% of the country's population are Christians. During this period, parties, occasional gatherings, and a massive rush for shopping become prevalent. These activities are directly connected to how a typical Ghanaian would rate their Christmas celebration success.
The people we have been speaking to have been naming income as being low, transportation fares and food prices as being higher than normal. And this is likely to affect how they are going to celebrate their Christmas.
Kumasi resident Ejafada says his Christmas celebration would not include his usual travels and expenses due to an upsurge in the cost of living.
400 cedis free. Now, scrap the dear. I feel me say Casascana. Now, me and your mamma to a minute to Fankra. Now, me and I went to a dear mayor from every say. Cascacrano, a very day. Now, you tell me quite flower for your muddy. That's why I feel milk. Now, it was 90 cedis. But now, you tell me 970 cedis, which is a bit too quiet party, American advance.
Nanayao says his regular budget for festive parties is crossed out of this year's plans for Christmas.
The party, they aim to me a party. Because we are a party, so I can only bear party. I saw the tour. Then next year, we can only go Colano. So, in Colania, I'm going to Mintoe. France, the best fee. Then I best them abonum. And then Nicolania, the Begini. But say Piaqua Montaco Gini, dear. And they are muscle.
Martin Aluta says though the economic crisis have had a toll on his business, his plans are promising for this year's Christmas.
We saw my pneumonia there, but yeah, so at least Kakane or say a timidity Brugnano. Then Timikas are fair so not as yet to us. Oh, said I missed you many last year and then points from Costa because that time no and Tokwane Noma dollar and Costa and Noma be rising and Tinama Noma from Kakumtana COVID or what there, but near Mojo Kakra. For expectation, maybe Tom Brunya Noma. To me, expectation, you answer. At the end of the day,
Clinton Yeboah's reports for JoyNews.
It says it is committed to replicating its new system of network of care across the country after a successful pilot in parts of the country. With the introduction of the network of care, health specialists will be available to attend to patients at any health facility they report to without necessarily being referred to any specialist hospital or an advanced health facility for treatment. The Director of Nursing Services at the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Barnabas Yeboah, made this revelation at a stakeholders meeting in Accra.
The newly introduced program primarily focuses on maternal health care delivery. Dubbed the Network of Care, the initiative, among others, is mainly to help reduce and prevent maternal and perinatal mortality. Results from 2000 to 2019 pilots in parts of the country have shown positive effects in healthcare delivery. Following the positive outcome, stakeholders are considering its operationalization at a sub-Saharan level. Director of Nursing Services, Dr. Barnabas Yeboah, spoke on behalf of the Health Minister.
Maternal health, well-being and survival must remain a central goal and investment priority for especially we in the developing and middle-income countries. Ghana has always been committed to improving maternal and child health outcomes through the development of policies, strategies and programs that have high impact to ensure the efficient and effective functioning of the overall health system.
He assured that Ghana will improve on its basic maternal health care services for better outcomes.
And our 2022 Ghana EMONG assessment revealed that the availability of basic emergency obstetric and neonatal care in the health centers declined from a low of 7% in 2010 to an even low figure of 4%. This situation is not good enough, but as a Ministry of Health, we are open to embracing all avenues and tools for delivering a safe model of care to improve maternal and perinatal health outcomes.
Maternal health lead for the World Health Organization, Alison Moran, assured that the WHO is committed to improving the efficiency of already existing healthcare services in the country.
That we call networks of care is a way of really strengthening the existing health system to improve the relationships and connections between different types of health workers as well as with the families and the communities to really improve the efficiency and functioning of the existing health system. So we really are optimistic that this innovative approach can really help accelerate progress to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals.
Lots of efforts to improve universal health coverage. A concerned stakeholder has called for enhanced collaboration between the private and public sectors in the country. Speaking on the sidelines of a stakeholder seminar on Monday, the country director of Farmer Assets Foundation, Dr. Maxwell Akwesi-Antwi, stressed the need for the public sector to join hands with the private operators to deepen universal health coverage.
The jointly held event between the Nationwide Medical Insurance and the Farm Access Group brought together stakeholders in the health industry to dissect the challenges facing the sector and how private and public stakeholders can unite forces to stem the tide. A recurring theme which featured prominently was the need for actors in both sectors to unite to front universal health coverage. Country Director of Farm Access Group, Dr. Maxwell Akwesi-Antwi, who spoke on the sidelines of the event, also stressed the point of enhanced collaboration.
It's been a very exciting international conversation. We're joined by a global audience from the UAC 2030 Advisory Group, and then also in-country, and all partners that are in the healthcare space were here. The word is collaboration. So, and it was one of the cross-cutting themes throughout all the discussions. And the collaboration can be on many levels. So you can collaborate in terms of sharing lessons that have been learned. You can collaborate on technology. You can collaborate on regulation. You can collaborate on the legislation that is required to make sure that the field is harmonized. You can collaborate on advocacy with citizens and also with government. So it's collaboration, but it can be taken at multiple levels. So it's exciting. So UAC is 7 years from now. The baton is in our hands. Let's reach it so that we don't leave this job for our children.
Chief Executive Officer of the Nationwide Medical Insurance, Nancy Na-Ampa, also underscored the need for an integration between the private and public sector players in the health fraternity.
The program has been very insightful. I think we achieved the purpose for which we did it. Was to start the conversation on what the contribution the private health insurance can be. And as you saw, the discussion was very insightful and it gave us a lot of things. My major takeaway is that the private health insurance could be the oil to help achieve universal health coverage by 2030. And also, we need to be more innovative. That's the private insurance sector should be very innovative in its approach to healthcare financing. Partnership is the way to go, definitely. We should all invest in our health and build the world we want and try to achieve UHC by 2030.
The event at the Alisa Hotel was under the theme Achieving Universal Health Coverage, the Role and Contribution of Private Sector Health Insurance. Interest groups who participated in the discourse included the National Health Insurance Authority, Farm Access Group, and the Nationwide Medical Insurance, amongst others. The conversations here have been thoroughly insightful, and principally they have focused on how to expand healthcare, of course rolling in the private sector and what they can do specifically to complement the efforts that are being masterminded by the public practitioners as well. For JoyNews, my name is Pakwesi Shandoff.
And that's all we have for you here on The Pulse. I'm blessed to log on to myjoyonline.com. We have updates on our stories there. We'll see you again. Next is Let's Talk Showbiz.